As the enemy officer paused mid-gesture from Adam's well-placed shot to her head, he chuckled darkly. It was rather comical to watch someone freeze still as a statue in the middle of clearly angry gestures. Taking this as his opportunity to flee amidst the chaos, he reactivated his jump kit and bounced down to a lower rooftop. He was intent on getting to the rendezvous point with Cell, leading any pursuers into an ambush. Hopefully, however, he'd be able to use the mayhem he'd caused to his advantage and disappear. The crackle of air ionizing over his shoulder let him know, to his dismay, that he'd been spotted. He turned and began to lay hate on the fighters below. Bracing against the parapet wall, he sighted the head of one of the soldiers and let loose 3 rounds, locking her in much the same way as his earlier quarry. He got up from his position and immediately felt a round harmlessly impact his backplate, prompting him to silently thank Corellia, his pod's armourer. He dove off the opposite side of the building into a deserted street, switching the jump kit into the running mode, and began to move down the roadway from cover to cover. The enemy began to pour out from behind him, and he turned into an alley, placed his hand with his thumb in an L against the wall, and braced his rifle against it. The ionized air began to sputter and crackle around him, as enemy fire charred small divots in the structure around him. Lining up a shot, he put 3 rounds into the chest of a woman who had neglected to take proper cover, and she fell forward, locked in position. Should have stayed behind, lady. He switched his rifle to full auto, and began laying 3 to 5 round bursts in alternating patterns to where the shell had taken cover. One woman made the mistake of poking her head over cover, and probably took a round to the face, dropping her on the spot. Adam broke contact and fled down the alley, crossing into the street that would lead him to his partner. A blistering barrage of fire erupted from behind him, some of it finding its way to his back and shoulder plates. The building to his left was conveniently close and solid, so Adam elected to use it for cover. Moving into the 4-story building's atrium, he broke right up a stairway and into a hallway full of rooms. This would serve adequately, allowing the entire unit to follow him into the structure, but forcing them to either take their time clearing every room, or risk passing over him. He set up in one of the rooms, laying behind a bed with only his head and rifle poked out to sight in the doorway. He listened to the loud noises of the footsteps, along with the soldiers calling out orders. Slowly but surely, he heard the militiaman file into his hallway, kicking down doors and clearing each room. He took his rifle off safe and shifted slightly, just waiting for the moment his fatal funnel would become useful. The time came when a large woman shoved a booted foot against the door and pulled into the room, immediately heading left. Adam drenched the 3 attackers that entered his room with full auto fire, their bodies piled up in and around the doorway. He rose to his feet, seeing a blue-painted grenade on the hip of one of the women. Assuming this to be a simulated grenade, he grabbed it and tried to figure out how the damn thing functioned. It was spherical, with a button and a slider on the top of it. Taking a moment, he pulled the slider down, pushed the button, and threw it into the hall. Hopefully, even if it didn't go off, it would still startle his pursuers. As he tossed the ball into the hall, one of the militiawomen started grumbling. "Oh, great. I got killed by a guy. The sergeant's never going to let me live this one down." Don't worry, soldier. Not my first time taking scalps. The dead don't speak, by the way," Adam replied with a chuckle, pausing to gently slap the side of the soldier's helmet. "Tell you what, I'll forgive you if you buy me a drink after this," she replied, her mood seeming to brighten at Adam speaking. "Make your way to Ferrara sometime. I'll snag you a red grain. Sorry, ladies, gotta bounce," Adam said, activating his jump kit and bounding through the room's window, shattering it in the process. He dropped 2 stories to the ground, landing near a militiawoman who, rightfully startled by his sudden appearance, froze like a deer in headlights. Adam, too, remained still. His brain was still processing the situation he found himself in. His opponent made the first move, bringing up her rifle to make a shot. This sudden action finally made Adam's mind settle on the course of action. In one deft move, he batted her weapon to the side with his left arm and drew his sidearm with his right. Even as he was raising his weapon to its proper position, stepping back in the process, he was already squeezing off shots. All 7 found their mark, the woman collapsing as her armor froze up. After the soldier fell with a pained "Gah!" Adam chuckled and left the woman. Soon more militia began to stream for the entrance of the building, with him turning to flee as he noticed. He sprinted at full speed down the street, vaulting small barricades placed periodically along the wall as ionized air cracked past his body. He was enjoying this chase, he realized, as he turned to put 4 shots into a woman about 70 yards behind himself. Turning back to his objective, he let the ever-dwindling team of Shilvanti pursue him, slowing down to allow their lackluster running skills to stand a chance of pursuing him. The green-shaded world that he was now entrenched in was familiar to all his years carrying out night operations on Earth. He rounded the corner and paused to check the small map in his omnipad. He was less than 500 meters from Cell now. "Hey, Cell, I'm bringing company," he said over the radio, breaking from his cover. "I'll be waiting. Let's show these bitches what it means to face Pod 7, she replied excitedly. "I'd like to remind you," he said, sprinting down the street and starting to feel the strain on his lungs from running and talking, "that you still need to pass selection and get the okay from my CO before you remember." It's fine," she stated with a laugh. "I'm sure I'll charm the tits right off of her." Adam shook his head with a smile as he ran, the ever-cheerful woman's personality grown on him quickly. He rounded a bend in the street, flipped on his jump kit, and bounced up to the rooftop of a 2-story building, setting the place for the ambush. In position, you ready? He asked over the radio.
Fuck yeah.
He kneeled behind a parapet wall, several buildings now separating him from where the city abruptly ended in the tree line. The plan was for Cell to engage from the forest, drawing the militia woman to her position and past Adam. When the enemy unit would be suitably engaged with Cell, Adam would hit from their rear left flank, catching them in a vertical, lateral, and near front-to-back crossfire. He hoped that the lack of suitable cover would allow him to inflict a mass casualty incident and allow them to break into the tree line unimpeded. Objective completed. The militiawoman filed out from the corner of the road, pointing down the street. Adam counted almost 24 bounding from cover to cover. He noted how jerkily they moved, clearly anxious from losing several of their number to his efforts already, along with their commander. He heard the crackle from Cell's shots from the team of soldiers, along with their return fire. He peeked over the parapet, finding them slowly moving past his position. He poked his head back down, dropped the old battery pack from his rifle, and inserted a fresh one. Exhaling a breath, he poked back over, noting that the soldiers below were in the perfect position for his task, along with 3 of their number having been down by his partner. Sighting the first one, he let her round into her helmet, locking her up on the spot. He repeated this process several times before the team below wised into his plan and broke for cover inside of a building across the street. He decided this was the time to break contact and flee with Cell, so he activated his jump kit, vaulted off the roof and sprinted for her position. She fell in on him as he passed by her position, fleeing into the woods. Other than the occasional ionized crackle, their friends back in town had failed to follow them. After running a little over a mile, Cell grabbed Adam's arm.
Can we stop for a moment?
She asked between massive gasps of air. Sure, you good? He asked, chuckling lightly.
Yeah, but fuck. How'd you run like that? Were you using your suit?
No, just half decent at running. Hell, I used to have a 10-minute 2-mile back in regiment. She froze, still breathing heavily under her helmet, clearly processing what just came out of his mouth. She shook her head and straightened out, letting out a deep exhale.
Is this average for humans?
She asked, clearly suspicious. No. Keep in mind the average for human special operations is significantly better than your ordinary man. I'd say your average human can fairly easily pull off a 9-minute mile, though.
Oh, thank fuck, she said before continuing. I thought the Empire just stumbled upon a race of super soldiers. What have you been my only sample size? It's good to know you're not all freaks of nature.
The two burst out laughing at that moment, the levity of the situation clearly offset by their prior mission. Adam was just about to reply, when he heard a loud crunch less than 100 meters off their right. Run, was all he managed to say, before the pounding of large metal feet began to loudly crash through the forest, quickly approaching their location. The two sprinted, hoping to make it to the staging area before the machine caught them. Branches pinged off of Adam's armor and helmet as he burst through the undergrowth.
Fuck!
Shouted Cell from behind him. He paused, turning to see what had happened when he realized Cell had fallen. A small branch from a felled tree had penetrated through her thigh armor. He sprinted to her as she pulled herself free. He held her to her feet, and he heard her cry out in pain and fall to her knees.
Go, leave me, I'll hide, or something. Just get the fuck out of here, Adam.
Nope, not gonna happen, he thought, desperately trying to come up with a plan as the footsteps of the hulking piece of machinery came ever closer. He dragged her behind a small ledge, protected by the root of a large tree. Trying to decide what to do, a memory of his returned from earlier. What would the stun armor do to a machine? Stay here, he said, grin forming as the admittedly terrible plan came to his head. I've got an idea.
Adam, go. If I just get a couple of minutes to myself, I can...
She got him before he cut her off. I'm not leaving you behind, Cell. We go for this together or not at all. Yep, terrible idea. I'm putting my whole future with the commandos on the line for someone I just met, he thought, as he turned away from the confused and slightly distraught Cell. He walked out into the middle of a clearing, only barely hearing Cell whisper, "Why?" The truth is, he didn't really know. He didn't understand why he was doing any of this, but he couldn't stop now. Part of him wished he had just died on Earth, left in some long-forgotten shallow grave in the mountains. He fired off 3 rounds into the air, setting his jaw as he waited for his prey. In all truth, he knew that he was actually the prey in this scenario, but if his plan worked, he'd be able to get himself and the wounded Cell to safety. The machine burst through a copse of trees in front of where he stood, pausing in his motions. The operator clearly stunned by the sight she saw in front of herself. One lone man staring her down, far away from any reinforcements, was not something she probably expected.
Hi,
came a crackling voice over the machine's intercom. Hey, he replied cheerily, as he threw his rifle to the ground, wanting to put the pilot as off balance as he could before their engagement.
So, said the pilot awkwardly, are you surrendering?
Nope.
Oh, wait, no?
She replied, clearly very confused by this entire situation. Nope, he answered again, beginning to circle to the left of the machine slowly. Truth is, I don't think I can get away from you. Then why aren't you surrendering? Asked the pilot slowly. Oh, that's easy. I just need to take you down, then I'm home free, he said with a laugh, as the machine began to pad loudly, circling in the other direction. Suddenly he activated his jump kit, feeling the reinforcements in his legs tighten. Well, I don't see any AT on you. Does your suit have some kind of hidden rocket launcher that I don't know about? The pilot was now clearly amused more than scared, but clearly nervous of Adam's confident attitude. Ah, shit, said Adam, miming slapping his pockets. I knew I left something at home. The pilot laughed over the intercom, the gargantuan mech suit mimicking her own body position, one hand going to its gut. Adam chose this moment to strike, springing forward with his suit ability. The pilot was too slow to react, massive hand missing him entirely as he landed on a cockpit. He drew his knife and began to pretend to try and use it to pry open the canopy. The pilot cocked her head inside the exo and began to laugh as she picked Adam up with one of the machine's hands, squeezing him just enough to be uncomfortable. Holy shit! I didn't expect you to have the tits to do that, she said with mirth in her voice, clearly impressed by his bravery. I'll make sure to note your valor in my report. Adam now had the woman right where he wanted her, however. He began to cackle like a madman as he shifted just enough to put his right hand over his left wrist. The woman didn't react to his antics, clearly off-put by the mentally unstable acting male. I think you currently have bigger things to worry about than your report, quipped Adam, entirely wincing at his bad pun, as he pushed the stun feature on his armor. Several loud pops, a consistent buzzing noise, and a shower of sparks emanated from where his armor met the torso-sized hand that gripped him. To Adam, it sounded like a power line had collapsed millimeters from his ear. The machine ceased around him, every gear seeming to simultaneously activate on the suit as it stiffened. The grip it had over him tightened down, causing Adam to throw his head back and scream wordlessly as he felt two of his ribs crack under the pressure. After seconds that felt like hours, the machine fell back and rolled on its side with its outstretched arm, still holding Adam, resting on the ground. Adam grit his teeth, working as best he could to extricate himself from the vice-like grip of the machine, despite the pain of at least 2 broken ribs. He winced as he heard feet running his direction, assuming it to be militia reinforcements. His plan had failed. He just hoped Sella made it out in time. He turned his head to look at who approached, but was surprised to find Sel, white foam in her leg wound, half running, half limping towards him. That was your plan? She asked, moving to the wrist of the machine, pulling off a panel. Hey, said Adam through gritted teeth. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Yeah, it was fucking cool as a grit crab, but no, it was a terrible plan, she said, putting a latch in the panel that seemed to unlock the grip of the machine, the large fingers collapsing limply to the ground. If you just let me finish, I would have told you that I was going to patch the wounds and find my way out. But no, you just had to go pick a hand-to-hand fight with a damned exo. It worked though, he replied, as she plugged a cable from her omnipad into the back of his helmet. He tried to bat her hand away, but she just slapped the faceplate off his armor. I'll ring a suit diagnostic to see what injuries you fucking have, you dense man. Stay fucking still before I add an injury myself. Ugh, fine, he replied, sitting up. He just wanted to leave the area already. Okay, it looks like you've got 3 broken ribs and your left elbow is dislocated. Beyond that, it's just bruises. I'm going to set the elbow, inject a small dose of biophone to internally cast your ribs, and give some pain meds, alright? Just get it done quickly. I don't want to be here when the militia arrives. Good work, takes... She grunted, as she jerked his arm painfully, the pop of his elbow resettling audible to his ears. Time. I'll go as fast as I can safely. She pulled a small canister from her belt and attached a syringe tip to it from a sealed package. Tapping the needle twice, she poked the needle painfully into his ribcage, twice on his right side, and once on his left. The feeling of his ribs shifting back into place inside his body was incredibly odd, and even more painful, causing him to groan through his teeth. Oops, she said, clearly not actually sorry. I probably should have taken my time and given the painkillers first, but someone is trying to rush me. She tossed the spent biofoam canister to the side, pulling out another syringe, injecting it in small doses over his ribs, at once just above his elbow. Adam felt the areas in question numb up, the pain fading as the meds did their work. See? All better, she laughed, tapping him on the shoulder. Adam grunted, rose to his feet, and walked to retrieve his rifle from where it lay. In short order, the duo walked into the tree line, intent on arriving at the staging area as quickly as possible. 4 hours later, they sat in front of a desk back in their home building. The woman that occupied the chair opposite to them cut an imposing figure. High cheekbones, a face dotted with small scars, a death's head uniform with a patch on her arm that held 3 rockers beneath it. Adam knew the first was for being blooded, but he had no idea what the other 2 meant. Upon returning to the staging area, they had learned that their team was the first to complete their objective. Because of the display in the woods, their team had drawn the attention of a general back at base, and that she wanted to speak with them. The very same general in front of whom they now sat, in uncomfortable silence for nearly 2 minutes, without a word being uttered. Thankfully, the general broke the silence first. So, care to explain exactly why a militia company is billing me 82,000 credits for damages and repairs on an XO? I take it shit happens wouldn't be a good enough explanation, General? Asked Adam, trying to dribble even an ounce of levity into their conversation. The General, however, shot him a withering glare for a few seconds, before a grin cracked on her face, and she began to laugh deeply. Oh, when Grim told me that you had some massive stone tits on you, I did not believe her. She pushed out through deep belly laughs as she slapped the desk in front of her. I said to myself, oh yeah, I'm sure Grim found a competent fighter, but he's still just a guy. And here I am, clam on my face because one of my recruits decided to fistfight an EXO, and fucking won. I'm glad I could be a point of entertainment for the cadre, Adam said, during her pause to laugh some more. And the fuck you are. Old Zev is going to be swimming in booze over the next shower because of you.
So, we're not in trouble then?
Asked Sel meekly, clearly uncomfortable with being brought to the special operations equivalent of the principal's office. No. The militia commander is pissed, but I've got a fat enough budget to shut a clam up. I just want to tell you that officially, what you did never happened. If word got out to our enemies that some of our exos were sometimes vulnerable to electric shock, well, let's just say some of our operations on the periphery would become very fucked very quickly. She paused as the two nodded. All right, you two, get back to the bay. The next week or so is going to be very nice for the two of you. This exam is one that you were not technically supposed to pass, although usually a couple of teams do every year. The ones that fail have to go through remedial combat training, which is mostly just an excuse for the instructors to fuck with them for a week in the field. So, we're free to go? Asked Adam. Yes, you are. By the way, I see here that Grim sent you with a missive that gives you permission to recruit to Pod 7 while you're here. I take it from listening to your communications logs that you'd like me to file Cell for direct recruitment status to Pod 7? Cell stiffened at the question, eliciting a chuckle from the imposing woman. Absolutely, ma'am. Captain Grimm sent me to find a medic, and I found a great one. My ribs don't even hurt anymore. Good to know, she said, tapping at her omnipad. It's done. Get the fuck out of my office. Guess an R&R in the bay? Dismissed. With that, both recruits stood, saluted, and turned for the door, shutting it quietly behind them.